Well, we are at the end of Unit 5, and we have a review to make sure that everyone is ready for the assessment. Okay, this first one, select all of the true statements. Okay, well, it looks like for the most part, we really don't even have to do all of the math for these because there's, we'll see some of them. Okay, so this first one, it says that negative 6.3 and negative 3.6 is positive. Well, I know that when I add a negative plus a negative, that is always going to equal another negative. Now, it is important that you don't start to get your rules mixed up, because sometimes people tend to get the rules that are evident for multiplication and division mixed up with the rules for addition and subtraction. So please be careful about that. Okay, select all the true statements. Okay, so A is not true. Negative 1.3 plus negative 1.3 is equal to 0. Okay, well, I could see how people might get this confused, but only when we add opposites are added together equals 0. And these are not opposites, these are actually the same exact number. So therefore, this is also not true. Okay, negative 48 minus negative 90 is negative. Well, this one I'm going to have to do a little bit of work, not all of it, obviously, but I have to stay, change, cha-cha-cha. Don't forget to cha-cha-cha. And now I know when I actually do this addition, the signs are the same. Nope, they're not the same. If the signs are different, find the difference. So I know that I'd be finding the difference of these. And my larger absolute value is right here. So therefore, the sign of this one would always be positive. And that's due to the fact that the larger absolute value is negative, because that's always the sign that we take for our final answer. Okay, so far I haven't found any that are true. Okay, so negative 3/4 plus negative 1.25 is negative. Well, just like in the first one, when I add two negatives together, this is a negative plus a negative, my answer is, of course, going to be negative. And that's what it says here, so therefore D is the first statement that is true. Okay, let's see if the last one. This says negative 1.6 minus negative 50/5 is positive. I know, similar to C, I'm going to stay, change first. So I've got 1.6, so I stay, change, cha-cha-cha. And now I've got, the signs are different. Find the difference. Oh, wait, sorry, guys. That is add. So negative 1.6 plus 1 plus positive 50/5. I don't know if I said it aloud correct or not, but it certainly is correct now. Okay, so I know I'm going to be finding the difference between the two, and of course then take the sign of the larger absolute value. But I think the first thing that's wise to do here is to change that fraction, because it's pretty obvious, I imagine, to most of us. So that'd be negative 1.6 plus 50 divided by 5, or 50/5, is going to equal 10. So now, when I look to see which one of these has the larger absolute value, again, it's the positive number, so therefore my answer will be positive. And that is exactly what it says, so therefore this one is also true. Next. A drone is flying 65 feet above sea level. Okay, it seems high. That's interesting. Directly below the drone, a trout is swimming 15 feet below sea level. And directly below the trout is a quahog 32 feet below sea level. Select all the true statements. Okay, well, the first thing I'm going to do is draw myself a little diagram. So up here I've got 65. I'm just going to draw it down the side. I've got 65 feet. That's my drone. Okay. And then I'm going to have, what's next? A trout is 15 below. So remember, if this is 0, the trout is 15 below, that'd be negative 15. And I realize that, this isn't a whole lot of room that I'm using here, but I think that you can see it. And you'll certainly have more room on your paper to make this diagram. Okay, now finally, below the trout is a quahog 32 feet below sea level. So be careful here, because that quahog is actually 35 feet below sea level, not 32, I said 35, 32 feet below sea level, not 32 feet below the quahog. So be careful of that. So now I can see that I've got a couple of different distances. Before I even start looking at these statements, so I've got this distance here from 0 to 32. I've got a distance from negative 15 to 32. And then I've got this distance from 0 to 65. And then, of course, there's the distances between the drone and the things that are underwater. So, first thing, let's not forget, and it's very important because I know that this is very, very confusing at times. The distance, the distance is always positive because you're just finding the difference between two things. So that's always positive. Okay, and then the difference depends on the order. Sorry, I'm just fixing that so that you can actually read it. Sometimes it's not so easy to use the stylus. Anyway, the difference can be positive or negative. And that, of course, depends on the order that the problem is done. So, let's go look at each of these. Well, you know what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to look at the distance, anything that says distance first. So C is looking at distance. The distance between the height of the drone and the trout is 80 feet. The drone and the trout. Okay, so that means we're going to look at the drone, which is right here at positive 65, and the trout is here at negative 15. So that means the distance from 0 to negative 15 is 15, and the distance from the drone to 0 is 65. And this is not dependent on the order. We're just looking at that distance from 0 each time. So that's 15 plus 65 is actually equal to 80. Because remember, 15 plus 5 is 20, and then 20 plus 60 more is, of course, going to give us 80. So this is 80. So the distance between the heights of the drone and the trout is 80 feet. And I'm looking to select all of the true statements. So that means that C is going to be the first of our true statements. So I'm just going to highlight that for now. Okay, and then let's look down here at the other one that looks at distance. The distance between the height of the drone and the quahog. The drone and the quahog. Okay, well, we already know the distance of the drone from 0 to 65 is, of course, 65. And then from 0 to the quahog is 32. So if I add those two together, 60 plus 30 is 90. 5 plus 2 is 7. That's certainly 97. So this one would also be true, that the distance between the heights of the drone and the quahog is in fact 97 feet. So now all I really need to do is look at the differences, okay? Because we know that the magic number up top for these first two is of course 80. And then for the once for the quahog, it's 97. And now it's just a matter of figuring out, is it positive or is it negative? So the way that we would do that, it says the distance in height between the drone and the trout. So what we want to do here is write out, so it says the drone first. So I'm going to write the drone. If I'm finding the difference, I always subtract. And the trout is at negative 15. So of course I would say change, cha-cha-cha. So that's going to equal 65, stay, change, change. So therefore my answer is going to be just like it was in letter C. It is going to be positive. So the one that I want to choose is the second one. Whoops. Okay, and here it is. That is variable choice B. I know some of you want to say letter, but remember this is math class, they're all variables, even the ones we use to spell words. Okay, and then the next one, we've got the distance between the drone and the quahog again, well the drone again, so that's 65. Finding a difference, so I subtract the distance between that and the quahog is 65 minus negative 32. Of course, I stay, change, change, cha-cha-cha. So that's going to equal 65, change, change, cha-cha-cha. So I know that it is, in fact, a positive plus a positive. So that, of course, is going to give us another positive. So the one that says it's positive is choice E. So the answer to this is all the true statements. So the true statements would be B. Whoops, I need to change that. So that would be B, C, E, and F. Next, we're going to let negative 5, 6 and is A and B is negative 2/3. And they very conveniently put both of those on the number line here so we can see them. So negative 5/5 is A and negative 2/3 is B. So complete expression. Oh, circle each one that has a negative value. Okay, well, A plus B, so I've got negative 5, 6. Negative 5, 6 plus negative 2/3. Again, don't even have to do this because a negative plus a negative is going to equal a negative number. So that would mean I circle A. Next for B, A divided by B. So I'd have negative 5, 6 divided by negative 2/3. Oh, remember now we're looking at those division rules. And when I have a negative divided by a negative, remember they're the same, two negative people when they're together. They're happy because they get to complain together. So this one is a positive. So I am not going to circle this. In fact, I'll X it out so that we're very clear. Next, I've got A minus B. So A is negative 5, 6. Whoops. Negative 5, 6 minus negative 2/3. Well, hopefully you take this and you go to the good old I love eating apples and avocados. So I, improper fractions, that's done. Love, the least common multiple of 6 and 3, of course, is going to be 6. So I know that both denominators need to have 6. So the first part, negative 5, 6, that's already a 6, so this is going to be negative 5. minus negative, negative. Well, to get from 3 to 6, it's times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So now I really only need to pay attention to these top two numbers, because what I have there is a stay, change, change, cha-cha-cha, and then the signs are different, find the difference. So that means when I find the difference, I'm looking for the absolute value of both of these, and I say which one has a larger absolute value. That, of course, would be negative 5 is further away from 0 than negative 4. So that 5 minus 4, of course, is 1, and the answer is negative. So that means I circle this one, because I'm still looking for those negative ones. Now I've got A times B. Oh, this is another pretty easy one. I've got negative 5, 6, multiplied by negative 2/3. Well, I don't even need to do this because I know a negative times a negative is always going to equal a positive. So that means this one is also not negative. Next, you need to calculate the value of each of these expressions. Okay, well, all right. Looks like I've got some fractions to multiply. This is always fun, Math Macarena. So I need to put my negative 21 over 1. I don't need to do any state change flip because I'm not dividing. Remember the beginning of that song says, first we will divide. Keep the first, flip the second. Now you multiply. So we're starting there where it says now you multiply. Keep the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So that's negative 21 times 4. Well, 4 times 20 is 80. 4 times 1 is 4. So that's negative 84. And then down the bottom, I've got the bottom with the bottom, so that's 1 times 5, of course, is 5. Now, this is absolutely a correct answer, but that little tiny 5's too little to hold up the big giant 84. How many times does 5 go into 84? Well, if I know that anything that's divisible by 5 has to end in a 0 or a 5, and 84 does neither, so I'm going to take that 4 out and just kind of think about 80 for now. And I say to myself, 80 divided by 5. Well, 80 divided by 5, that's going to give me, 5 goes into that 8 one time, with 3 left over, so I've got 30. 30 divided by 5, of course, is 6. And then I bring back that number that I took out momentarily, so that's 4/5. And the answer is negative, so this is also negative. So there's your answer, negative 16 4/5. Now, this one right here is the same exact numbers. I don't need to do the math again. That is redundant and a waste of time. So I know that this is going to equal 16 4/5. The question becomes, is it positive or negative? Well, what's the rule? I know I've got a negative and a negative. They're happy because they get to complain together, so that makes it a positive 16 4/5. Next one, negative 21 divided by 7. Remember, those fractions are division signs or division problems. So 21 divided by 7, I know is 3, has a negative in front of it, so the answer is negative 3. Next, 21 divided by 7 is, in fact, still 3. But I've got a positive. Remember that one on top is actually positive if it doesn't have anything in front of it. So I've got positive divided by a negative. They are sad because they are making each other sad. That is negative. Now I've got a negative divided by a negative. So first of all, 21 divided by 7 we know is 3. A negative and a negative, they are happy together. That is going to be positive 3. Okay, so for this, we're going to be solving each equation for the missing variable. And I know whenever I need to do that, I typically just do the opposite of whatever's going on with that variable to get the variable by itself. So for instance, for this first one, 1/6 times p. Remember, number next to a variable means multiplication. The opposite of multiplication, of course, is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 1/6. These would cancel. So that brings me to P equals, that is a P, equals -4. I'm going to put it over 1 because I know I'm going to have a fraction. So -4 divided by 1/6. Math Macarena time. So then I get to here and I go keep the first, flip the second. First we will divide. Keep the first, flip the second, then we multiply. Keep the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So that means -4 times 6 gives us -24. Of course, that's over 1 because 1 times 1 is 1. So therefore, I know that P equals -24. Next, got 30 minus Q equals 30.8. This one is a little bit trickier, but that's fine. We still got this. So I look at this, I say the opposite of 30, because this is always positive, or plus 30. So the opposite of that would be to subtract 30 from both sides. Now be careful here, because this right here is negative Q. You can't just drop the negative. So this is now negative Q equals 30.8 minus 30, so I'm just left with that 0.8, 0.8. Now remember that Q right now has the opposite, it's negative Q. So here we go. So that means the opposite of Q, so that means the original Q would equal the opposite of 0.8, which is negative 0.8. Right there. And the next one, I've got C equals, oh no, it's not C. C is the number that we're on. We got R here. So negative 0.2 equals negative 20R. So to get the variable by itself, I'm going to have to divide both sides by negative 20. So let's bring that out here. These cancel, so I've got R equals negative 0.2 divided by negative 20. Okay, so I know when I do this, the first thing I'm going to do is, because I've got a decimal in there, I'm going to move it out. So that means I'm going to move it over, move this one over one place. It means it's got one there. I'm going to move over one place. That gets replaced with a 0. So that, of course, would mean I've got, well, first of all, I've got my two negatives. Two negatives together make a positive. So I'm going to end up with positive 2 over 200, which I know will reduce to, because I have 2 goes into both of them, 1 over 100, or 1/100th. And if you were more comfortable having that as a decimal because it started as a decimal, I would have R equals 0.01, or 1/100th. So there we go. We've got all of these. There's A, B, and C. Next. The table shows transactions from 6 different bank accounts. Fill in the missing numbers. Okay, so that means I'm going to be looking across my old account balance. That means I start at 832, and then I add negative 216, which really means in essence that I'm subtracting 216, so that equals 616. Okay, now remember these are 6 different bank accounts, and I'm actually going to label these A, B, C, D, E, and F, just to make my life that much easier. Okay, and then next one, they show me I've got negative 39 plus negative 40, of course, gives me negative 79. Okay, so now I start with 516 plus negative 250 So if the signs are different, find the difference. So what I'm really going to be doing is subtracting 516 minus 250. Well, I know that 250 plus 250 gives me 500. So there's 250 plus another 16 is 266. So, and the larger of the two absolute values is the positive 516. So this would be positive for 266. Okay, so this next problem looks obviously a little bit different because we don't know what we're starting with. So when I'm actually going to write this, I'm going to put a variable in there, and I'm going to say x plus 38. Oh, that is a terrible looking 8. There we go, fix that. Equals 18. Okay, so be careful here. Always just do the opposite. Follow the rules and you'll be fine. So what is the opposite of plus 38? Well, it's minus 38. Minus 38, minus 38. These two cancel. I'm left with x equals, if I have 18 and I take away 38, well, 18 to 0 is 18. So if I take that 18 away from the 30, that gets me to 0. Or from the 38, that would get me to 0. So 38 minus 18 would give me 20. So it's going to be 20. It's actually going to be negative 20 because it's actually going to be less than 0. So that means this one here is negative 20. Okay, moving right along. Next one, I've got 251 plus some number equals 400. So we have to figure out what n is. I am actually going to go ahead and solve this using my method here, just to make sure you see exactly how it works. I know I didn't really do that with the first one, but it's always good to see different ways. So I subtracted 251 from both sides because that's the opposite of plus or positive 251. These cancel, I'm left with n equals, well, 400 minus 251. Well, 400 minus 200 gives me 200. So I'm just like thinking out loud. 400 minus 200 gives me 200. And then I still have to take away another 51. 200 minus 50 is 150, minus one more is 149. So that's what's going to go there, 149. And then the next one is just like the D, so F will be very similar to that. So that means I've got y equals, nope, that's not true. Not the equals. Y, whoops. Well, that's better. Okay, so y plus 64 equals negative 20. Okay, so my rule, I know that I do the opposite. The opposite of plus 64 is minus 64. I subtract 64 from both sides. These cancel. I'm left with y equals, I'm at negative 20, and I go down another 64. That gives me negative 84. So right here we've got negative 84. Okay, so now we need to explain what the numbers negative 39, negative 40, and negative 79 tell us about account B. So basically they're asking us what happens. So we'd say, you know, when the account balance started, it's at negative 39. So the account starts less than 0. At negative 39. And then the next thing that happens is that the person B, we'll just say person B for now, B spends $40. So that would therefore be negative 40. That's where the negative 40 came from. And then the new balance, when they take the negative 39 plus negative 40 equals negative 79. Okay, Allie is emptying her 20-gallon fish tank so she can clean it. Okay. Her brother began, well, that's nice. Her brother began emptying the tank, but then he stopped. Well, typical, right? The pump empties the water from the fish tank at a constant rate. When Allie begins emptying the tank, it contains 18 gallons of water. So I'm just going to put that over here. She started at 18 gallons, okay? 4 minutes later, the tank now has 10 gallons. So in 4 minutes, something happened and it now has 10 gallons. So 18 minus 10 is 8, right? So that means in 4 minutes, it went down negative 8, right? Okay, so what is the rate of the amount of water in the tank changing? Use a signed number and including the unit of measure. Okay, so I know that it went down 8, so that's negative 8 gallons in positive, because we can't go back in time, 4 minutes. Negative 8 divided by 2, 8 divided by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. A negative divided by a positive is negative, so it's negative 2 gallons per minute. How many more minutes will it take for the tank to drain completely? Explain or show your reasoning. So the tank now contains 10 gallons of water, right? 10 gallons. And we know that it goes down 2 gallons per minute, right? So we need to lose 10, go down 2 gallons per minute. So that's going to equal 10 divided by 2 is 5. And negative divided by negative is a positive. So that's going to take 5 more minutes. Okay, so Allie's, well, we know what's happened here. Allie's brother started running the pump when the fish tank was completely full, and then he stopped. Of course he did. Anyway, how many minutes had Allie's brother run the pump before she got there to finish it? Finish emptying it. Okay, so the tank started at 20 gallons. And we know that when Allie got there, it had 18. So 20 minus 18, of course, is 2 gallons. So that's what Allie's brother had drained already. And we know that it goes on 2 minutes per gallon. So both of these, of course, are negative because it has to go down to, we know it goes negative 2 minutes per gallon. So, or gallons per minute. Really? Oh my goodness. I am so sorry. Negative 2 gallons per minute. Do you hear my dogs barking back there? They distracted me. Just so you know what happened. Anyway, so that means we've got negative 2 divided by negative 2. 2 divided by 2, of course, is 1. Negative divided by a negative is positive. So it took 1 minute. That's how long Allie's brother ran the tank before she got there. 1 minute.